39 minutes. That is all that separates an Earth day from a Mars day. It sounds trivial, and yet that tiny gap is exactly why people who have tried to live on Martian time have ended up nodding off at stoplights. In the rest of the solar system, the days are obviously ridiculous. Venus takes 243 Earth days just to rotate once. Jupiter is spinning so quickly that one day there is less than 10 hours long. Titan needs 16 days for a single turn. None of those are remotely close enough to fool you into thinking they might work. Mars is the odd one out. It completes a rotation in 24 hours and 39 minutes. It has seasons. It has mornings and evenings. It gets sunrise at about the time you would expect. Out of everything that would have to be rethought to live there, the length of the day looks like the one thing you might actually keep. But let's back up and talk about the clock already inside you, because you are carrying one around whether you notice it or not. Deep in your brain, there is a tiny group of cells about the size of a grain of rice that keeps time for you all day and all night. It controls your body temperature, your hormones, your alertness, and your sleep. If you leave it entirely on its own in darkness, with no sunlight and no clocks, it does not settle on exactly 24 hours. It runs at about 24 hours and 12 minutes. That extra 12 minutes ought to gradually throw your life into chaos, but it doesn't, because every morning sunlight resyncs the system. Light reaches your eyes, that cluster of cells adjusts, and you get pulled back onto schedule. That daily correction is the only reason any of us manage to keep a steady rhythm at all. Now imagine putting that system on Mars time. Each day, your schedule slides later by 39 minutes. On day 1, you wake up at 7. On day 2, it's 7:40. On day 3, it's 8:20. After a week, your morning is happening in the middle of the afternoon. After 3 weeks, you're completely flipped, awake through the night and sleeping through the day. And this is the cruel part. Jet lag eventually ends. You travel, you feel miserable for a few days, your body adjusts, and then it's over. This never ends. The next day shifts another 39 minutes, and the next one after that. You never really arrive anywhere because the finish line keeps moving away from you. We know exactly what this does to people because we've made them do it. Every time a rover lands on Mars, the team operating it has to be awake when the rover is awake. The rover follows Martian daylight. So for the first few months of those missions, the people back on Earth switched their lives over and live by Mars time. They kept 2 watches on them, one for each world. They put blackout curtains in their homes so they could sleep in total darkness at 2 in the afternoon. They were given special bright lights to imitate sunrise when their shift started. Some of them even stopped trying to explain what day it was to friends because the explanation took longer than the conversation itself. And even then, it wore them down. People talked about non-stop exhaustion that sleep didn't really fix. They had micro sleeps, those tiny moments when you lose a second or two without realizing it. They struggled to keep a thought in place. There were car crashes on the way home from work. Marriages got strained because one person in the house was living on a completely different planetary timetable from everyone else. After a few months, most missions just gave up and went back to Earth time, accepting that they would be out of sync with their own rover. The 39 minutes won. So that seems like the answer. Humans can't cope with a Martian day, except that's not actually what those experiments proved, and that's where the real story gets interesting. Those people were not on Mars. They were on Earth, trying to live by Mars time. Every time they stepped outside, the sun was in the wrong place. Earth's daylight was dragging their internal clock back toward 24 hours, while their work schedule was pulling it forward. Their bodies were being tugged in both directions at once every single day. On Mars, that conflict wouldn't exist. The sunlight there would be on Mars time too. The morning light that resets your clock would come 39 minutes later, and it would push your body in the same direction your schedule was already moving. Everything would be working together instead of fighting each other. That leads to a much better question. Not whether you can work Martian hours while standing on Earth, but whether a human body can actually settle into a day that is 24 hours and 39 minutes long and stay there. And the answer is genuinely strange. Your internal clock can stretch, but only within limits. Research on people living under artificial day lengths has shown that there is a range the body will actually lock onto. Go too far outside it, and the clock stops adapting and starts drifting on its own, which is the state those rover teams eventually fell into. The workable range is roughly 23.5 hours on the short side and about 24 hours and 40 minutes on the long side. Look closely at that. 24 hours and 40 minutes. A Martian day is 24 hours and 39. Mars does not sit comfortably inside the range. It lands right at the edge of it, and that edge is not the same for everyone. Some people naturally run a little long, and some run a little short, just like some people are true night owls, and some wake up at 5 in the morning without needing an alarm. So whether you personally could live on Mars is not really a matter of training. It isn't about discipline or toughness or willpower. It's a built-in trait. Some people could land on Mars and settle into that longer day within a couple of weeks without much trouble. Others would never fully lock in and would spend their lives slowly drifting around the clock, forever out of sync with everyone else around them. And there's no easy way to know which kind of person you are until you're actually there. You might think tiredness is the smallest of your problems on Mars, right behind radiation, low pressure, and everything else. It's actually the other way around. Long-term circadian disruption is not just about feeling sleepy. It affects your metabolism, your heart, your immune system, and your decision-making. On Earth, shift work over long periods is already treated as a serious health hazard, and the worst consequence is usually just having a bad day. On Mars, the stakes are completely different. Everything keeping you alive would be a machine that somebody has to monitor. Air, water, electricity, seals, all of it. A tired person on Mars is not just a nuisance. A tired person on Mars is a life support issue with a body attached. So what do you do about that? The answer is unusual, and it comes from the one part of Mars life that sounds the most depressing at first. A real settlement would almost certainly be underground, buried beneath several meters of soil to protect people from radiation. No windows, no view, only artificial light. That sounds like a prison, but it also means the lighting is entirely in your control. You're no longer stuck with whatever the sun happens to be doing outside. You can create a sunrise that starts at exactly the right moment, keep it going for as long as you need, and then dim it according to a schedule designed for human biology instead of the rotation of a rock. So the thing that would keep people sane on Mars is not a window. It's an excellent lamp, turned on by a strict timetable in a room with absolutely no daylight. There's one more detail that changes how you think about all of this. You probably imagine 24 hours as some fixed feature of reality. It isn't. Earth used to spin much faster. When complex life was first getting underway, a day on Earth lasted around 18 or 19 hours. The moon has been slowly stealing our rotation ever since, drifting a few centimeters farther away each year and applying a tiny break to the planet. Our day length increases by about 1.5 milliseconds every century, slowly, quietly, permanently. So the 24-hour rhythm inside your cells is not some universal law. It matches the speed this particular planet happens to be rotating at right now, in this moment of its history. Life here adapted to a spinning world, and that spinning world is still slowing down. That gives Mars a different meaning. 39 minutes is not a huge mismatch. It's smaller than the change Earth's own day has gone through over time, and smaller than the difference between someone who naturally wakes up at 6 and someone who naturally wakes up at 7. It really is tiny, and even so, it is just enough to sit right at the outer edge of what the human body can adapt to. That's how narrow the margin is. Not the margin for surviving in space, or breathing, or standing on a planet at all. The margin for simply keeping time. We usually talk about Mars as a difficult place because it's cold, dusty, and has such thin air. And all of that is true. But those are the kinds of problems engineering can handle. You can build a better suit, a thicker wall, a deeper tunnel. This problem is different. You can't engineer a new brainstem. You can't design a body that ignores what light is doing. The first people who live on Mars will spend their days underground, in windowless rooms, taking orders from a lamp. And what determines whether they can stay won't be the radiation, the dust, the soil, or the pressure. It will be whether the tiny cluster of cells behind their eyes, tuned over more than 4 billion years to a planet they left behind, is willing to accept 39 extra minutes.